It's time to stop memorizing 50 words a day from a spreadsheet. If you really want to know Korean vocabulary, there are 5 key steps to doing it. The best way to learn and actually remember is honestly just to use the vocabulary you know. You're not going to remember or be able to use it successfully if you're just looking at a spreadsheet and reading over and over and doing flashcards. You need to understand Korean. It can't just be a word where you look at it and you know, oh, this word means bed. You need to look at it and Korean is the Korean word. 침대 is 침대. You're not thinking 침대 equals bed. 침대 equals 침대. Full disclaimer, I'm still learning Korean. I'm not perfect and I have a lot to work on and I recognize it. My method isn't about being perfect. It's about actually making progress and making progress as fast as you can. So before we get onto those 5 steps, here's my core rule. 5 words a day. 10, 20, 30. Yeah, you can remember them in the short term, but if you really want to cement those in your brain, 5 words a day is your maximum goal. So we're going to start with step 1. If you're not cramming for a test, you're not studying to really memorize something, you just want to learn to speak naturally, throw away your flashcards. For some people, they work fantastic. I'm not going to say that they don't. And if you really love flashcards, keep doing them. But for me, flashcards never helped me memorize real useful words and remember them in a way where I can use them immediately. Flashcards lie to you because they leave out the real nuance of a language. If you're trying to learn the word good and bad in Korean, that's 좋다, 나쁘다. But a flashcard isn't going to tell you the actual nuance of the word. In Korean, you often say something like, 날씨가 좋지 않아요. Or 날씨가 안 좋아요. Like the weather isn't good. You never say the weather is bad. Like 날씨가 나빠요. That sounds weird because in Korean, bad is often more about moral character or someone's actions. It's not about, the weather is bad. Korean almost always uses a negative with it instead of saying 나쁘다. 나쁘다 has a much stronger meaning in Korean than it does in English. And if you're learning from flashcards, you're not going to know that. Here's the real way to learn vocabulary. No tricks, just very, very simple, easy steps. You're going to look at the things you see every day. If you live in Korea and you walk by the same signs every single day, you're going to learn new words by seeing those signs every day and thinking, I wonder what that word means. That's how I learned the word for hallucination, because I saw it on the side of a truck and it was like an advertisement and the truck was always parked outside my job. Every day I'd walk by, think, what is that? Look it up in the dictionary and be like, oh, that's what it is again. And eventually it just stuck in my mind. You can also do things in your home or your bedroom or wherever you live to make it easier to learn new words. I attach stickers that are waterproof to a lot of things in my house that they really stay on. So when I was trying to learn the names for kitchen utensils, I attached 냄비 to my pot. And now I remember what 냄비 is, or I guess saucepan in English. And so it's really easy to learn new words like that if you just attach stickers to everything you're trying to do. That's also how I learned the word succulent in Korean, which is 다육식물. And so you can just do all these little things and eventually those words are going to stick with you because you're seeing them constantly. You're not associating 냄비 equals saucepan. You see 냄비, you see the actual item and you're like, oh, this item is a 냄비. And you'll notice that I keep emphasizing you can't just directly translate everything because if you want to actually use language, you need to be able to use the words without having to pause to think, oh, what is this word again? I know it in English and translate. Because you're never going to be able to learn or memorize. Your brain's always going back and forth from English to Korean, and that makes it really, really, really difficult to actually use Korean successfully. You need your brain to form those sentences automatically and stay in Korean mode when you're using Korean. That brings us to the second way to learn Korean vocab and learn it fast. You're going to listen in to real-life conversations. This is the best way to learn vocabulary in any language and how to use it naturally inside sentences. So I have a lot of situations in everyday life, for example, when I'm traveling and I need to get to the window seat and there's someone sitting in the aisle seat, so I need to ask them to move and we're on the plane and it's about to take off, And it's really difficult sometimes. You don't learn that necessarily in a textbook. You learn the word 실례합니다, which is really formal and kind of sounds awkward in that situation, but that was all I had. So for a long time, I was just saying 죄송합니다, 실례합니다, and gesturing towards my window seat, and people would move and understand. And I wasn't being rude. But then one day I was riding a plane and the aisle in front of me, there was someone in the aisle seat and someone trying to get into the window seat. So they looked at the person in the aisle seat and they started saying it like this. 죄송한데 그 잠깐 자리라서. And then before they could even finish, the other person like responded and moved out of the aisle seat so they could get into their window seat. And that's how I learned the word for window seat in Korean, which is 잠깐 자리. And that's also how I learned how to express more naturally. And then next time I flew, I was able to actually use that phrase, and it was really, really simple. So that's going to bring us to step 3, which we kind of talked about there. You're going to use everything you use in daily life. If there's a word or a phrase you need to use and you want to learn, you need to just use it. Find a way to fit it into conversation. If you have a speaking partner, ask to talk about a topic where that will come up. If you don't have a speaking partner, but you know you can fit it into conversation, fit it in naturally. That's the best way to remember and learn, because if you use it wrong, someone will look at you weird. Maybe they won't correct you or say like, oh, this, but they are going to look at you and you'll know, oh, that sounds awkward in this situation, even if it got my message across. So one more example from my life is I learned the word for faint or pass out, and it's 실신하다. And so I used it at the doctor's office. I was getting blood drawn and they asked if I am okay with getting blood drawn. And I said, oh yeah, it's fine. I just can't watch or I'll pass out. And I used 실신하다. And that totally makes sense in a hospital. I didn't get any weird looks. But later, after I then learned that word through that situation and trying to use it, I was talking to some friends about how every time I see blood, and needles specifically, I pass out. And I used 실신하다 again. And they were like, oh, that's like a really formal word to use. Or maybe not formal is the way they expressed it, but just kind of not as casual or natural. And so I ended up learning the more colloquial word for pass out, which is 기절하다. And so it's really nice to have like these opportunities to speak at different places with different people too, because you can get a sense of, oh, this word for this situation at the doctor's office, this word with friends or in casual speech. That's going to bring us to step 4 of remembering Korean vocabulary. You are going to try to look for patterns. We already talked about looking at words you see in everyday life when you're walking. But in Korean, there are a lot of words that originate from Chinese. There's a lot of words that use what we call hanja, and so you'll see it especially in more formal vocabulary, more academic vocabulary, but you also see it a lot in other daily life things. So I'm going to give you my example. Every single day when I walk to work, I walk by a few things. I walk by a muin cafe. I walk by a muin ice cream like discount store. And I also walk by a muin vintage shop. And I already knew in Korean like vintage is vintage, right? Ice cream is ice cream and cafe is cafe. So muin, I had to figure out. I'd been to all of these places, so I knew there's no employees here. It's all automatic, it's unmanned. So I was able to guess, okay, muin must mean unmanned. And I thought about the 2 sounds in it, mu-in. I knew ingan is like human beings or humanity, right? And so I knew in must mean person. But there's no people there, so mu must mean nothing, like a negator of some sort. So automatically I was able to learn this new word, muin, that can be attached to places or stores to say, oh, there's no employee working here. It's like self-service, it's automatic, it's unmanned. When you know the actual like meaning of the hanja, even if you don't remember the exact word, the next time you use it or hear it, you're going to be able to use it. Or maybe you don't know the word, but you try using it, making a word with hanja, and you've made a real word. And the last step, step 5, you gotta find what works for you. If you are someone who really does like flashcards, you can incorporate those, but don't only use flashcards. If you're someone who loves reading books to learn new vocabulary, that's fantastic, read books. But the vocabulary you really want to learn, you need to use. You need to talk to people, you need to write it in a notebook. And for me at least, I think the most important part of learning is you should have something you do that's going to help you learn and use the vocabulary. So for me, I have a notes app on my phone and I write every single new word or phrase that I hear or see in real life where I've ended up on purpose looking up the meaning or thinking, oh, I should learn this word. I write it down in Korean and then I write the English translation. I add a sentence or to with details if I need to, or if it's like not clear, if there's some nuance to using the word. If you write all your things in a notes app, you don't need to go review and make flashcards out of it. I haven't made flashcards out of it. I don't purposefully review that list. But often, when I come across a word I've already written down on the list and I don't remember that word, I do remember that I wrote it down in my list and I can go look for it and find it. And you might say, oh, well, why don't you just go look in the dictionary? Which is valid. The Naver Dictionary is a fantastic thing and you should make use of it. But the reason I don't go look into the dictionary is because by looking through my notes and reading it again, there's something to be said for that connection you're making to having written it down yourself. I don't know every single word I've added to that list or phrase, but there are phrases that I've added where I've forgotten them for a moment and realized, oh, I want to use this. I know my phrase I wrote isn't going to be in Naver Dictionary. For example, 죄송한데 잠깐 자리라서 da-da-da. You know, I wrote that phrase down after hearing it in my notes app, and then I was able to use it. The first few months of words that I wrote in my notes app, I have completely memorized and they're intuitive now. I don't need to think when I use them at all. And same with a lot of the phrases. The phrases I often memorize a lot better than the vocabulary. So if that's an option, if you're learning vocabulary in phrases that you use, I highly recommend that over just individual words. That's not to say that you shouldn't use flashcards or study hard. For me personally, I have a huge issue with my attention span, and so I can't sit down and just study vocabulary. That's not how my brain works. It's not how I learn words. It's so miserable for me that I can't make myself do it. And so it's worked a lot better for me to have this more casual, flexible schedule, and in the end, it's been a lot more productive as well. I've learned a lot of words really fast, and I've learned how to use them. And honestly, I would rather have a smaller vocabulary but be able to speak naturally on a wide variety of topics than I would like to have a really big vocabulary but not be able to use any of it because I need to think for a long time to formulate my sentences. That brings us to the end of my 5 steps for really learning Korean vocabulary. Remember, use what you learn. Don't rely only on flashcards. Try to learn words and phrases. You should aim for a max of on purpose 5 words per day. And finally, try writing some stuff down. Figure out what works for you. Now I want to ask you, what's the weirdest or most random word you learned in Korean? How did you learn that word? Don't forget to leave it in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe. I'll try to get one out next week as well. Bye!